Well, hello there. Welcome to Catholic Underground, which is your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. It's episode number 186. Can't believe we're there. I'm Father Chris Decker, priest of the Diocese of Baton Rouge. Joining us, because they always do when I summon them, we've got Joshua LeBlanc from Abbeville, Louisiana. Hello, Joshua.
Hello.
Also got Father Ryan. He's up there in Campty, which still remains the bandwidth capital of nowhere, although I was gunning for that this past week on our podcast. In case you... Hi, Father.
Hi there, world. Yeah.
In case you try to join us, you probably noticed that we had absolutely nothing for you on that fateful Wednesday evening. Everything just broke. So we're back.
It was crazy because you could stream our complete inability to communicate with one another, and that was all visible, but we couldn't actually, communicate with one another.
Yeah, you know how they say the revolution will be televised? Well, whatever it was that we had was definitely televised. The only thing that was working was the stream, so you got to see everything that was horrible about it. But we're back on the air, digital and actual, and so we have a podcast to get through, so let's get to it. Now, you know that the Super Bowl is coming up. I mean, for us in Louisiana, it doesn't make a huge deal, really, because we have had to become Giants fans or whatever, because the Saints didn't quite go all the way. But still, nonetheless, the Super Bowl remains. Father, correct me if I'm wrong. The number one most watched something or other on Earth or something? I don't know how that works, but
pretty much.
Basically, because it is such a big deal, ads cost a lot of money. So I can't remember how much the famous 1984 ad for Apple Computer was, but it was an insane amount of money, and so people, these companies dump millions of dollars into Super Bowl ad time. Well, ESPN has been rethinking how this works, haven't they?
Yeah, ESPN is one of those networks that has been around forever, and they have a huge base, and they have a number of different outreach. Of course, they have magazines. They have a really, really good website. They have iOS and Android apps. They have a very successful TV network that expands in ESPN2 and ESPN Espanol, and maybe one day the Ocho. But they also have had for a long time ESPN Radio.
Yeah.
And the professionals looked up one day and said, hey, a whopping 1/5 of our listeners are listening to us digitally. We need to rethink radio, and we need to really consider what both new media and social media mean for us if we're going to stay ahead of the curve. Yeah. And so ESPN has rebranded their radio network as ESPN Audio. And it's one of those examples of a company that really gets what the future is and is trying to make it happen.
Right, exactly. And so there's even been the notion of some companies releasing their Super Bowl ads ahead of time due to social media and things like that. This is another example of ESPN, a very big company, realizing that people are moving into the podcasting realm. They're moving into getting their audio sources from other areas. And is it really radio when you're listening to it on the internet?
But I think that's exactly what we're trying to question.
Yeah.
Catholic Underground has been thinking about our vision and our mission, because I think it's almost 5 years, or it's been 5 years now we've been doing
6.
this. And we've been looking back at where we started, and where we started with the podcast was just exploring. It was just wondering, what can tech do? And I think that's what a lot of these major networks are trying to do is rethink very old and even very successful models. Even something like radio, which has been around since the 20s, is something that is not. It doesn't have to become obsolete. It doesn't have to be a thing of the past.
Right.
Television became cable and became digital, and there's no reason that just because they don't broadcast TV anymore, that doesn't mean that we continue to have some form of radio without broadcasting radio.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. Is that, you think that we say that the church thinks in centuries, right? But I think I've discovered that there's something that thinks slower than we do, and that is old media.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, and I think the issue is it's kind of like we talked about it before, the whole audiobooks thing too. I mean, people who in media don't know how to make this transition.
Yeah.
And so they use superficial ways to try and keep their market alive instead of just trying to figure out how you transition to this new area. I mean, you look at traditional Catholic radio. That's one of the things that I think some Catholic radio stations are doing, but I think some could be doing a better job at, is that you automatically, if you have an internet stream or you're releasing an iPhone or iPad app, you're automatically going to increase your listener base. No longer are people simply limited to how far you can send your signal out, but you're really sending a digital signal all over and everywhere. And so, I mean, I know personally, sitting here in Lafayette, I can't catch Catholic Community Radio in Baton Rouge, but I can sit down with my iPhone and listen to them and stream it, and that's the way I do it.
That's right, and that in addition to becoming global, it's also a way to allow the globe to see into your little niche too, and that's a real big thing. Could it be that we actually, as the Catholic Underground, we're earlier to the punch than a large company like ESPN or ABC? That's really something to think about. Almost the point of pride, dare I say it? But yeah, that's cool. We'll see where this goes with ESPN, and whether or not they're actually going to take it any farther, and if anybody else follows suit, because that's what happens, right? ESPN starts something, and then other companies say, hey, that's actually a really good idea, and so old media tends to cascade itself into new media. So we move from the idea of ESPN radio rebranding as audio to audiobooks.com. Now, this is something that is actually fairly new, although you'd think that somebody would have thought of it already.
Yeah, I mean, people like Spotify and Audible and Pandora are so gigantic. They're hugely popular services, and really they're not doing anything magical. They're just saying you can have all you want. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet. You can have all the music you want, but you have to pay a monthly fee. And if you ever stop paying that fee, then you stop getting access to that music, which is a model that works, with an awful lot of stuff in the past.
Yeah.
And audiobooks.com is the first really to the table to do something like that with audiobooks. And so the cost is obviously much higher. The cost is $25 a month, but you have to realize the usual audiobook costs you between $15 and $25. And so for this service to be worth it, you've got to really listen to a good number of audiobooks. Audible.com, our good sponsor, has the best library of audiobooks in the world, and they have two basic plans: $15 a month, $23 a month, with 1 or 2 books respectively, free books. And so this service really makes sense if you're listening to more than 25 hours of audiobooks in a month. This would be a great service for truckers. It would make an awful lot of sense for people with a really tough commute. There's certainly a market for this kind of thing.
Yeah, so this would be for somebody who finds themselves commuting every day, or somebody who, as you say, is on the road a lot. Maybe somebody who's an exercise fiend. I don't know. But it really is a clever idea to use the Spotify model for the spoken word. It's really something that's I hate to say it's unheard of, but it kind of is. We don't really think about it all that much.
Yeah, and I know that it takes a little get used to for audiobooks, but this is one of those things I really wish more people would get into. Because it's astounding how much you can think and how much you can focus your mind when you're just doing little tiny tasks, like cooking or repairing something or driving. Little middle range distances where you could choke down 8 or 10 songs on the radio, or you could listen to half a chapter, a whole chapter of really good spiritual book.
Right, and that's what I was getting. Now, Father, you're an audio. You're probably the most audio book oriented of all of us. And is this something that you would think about doing? Would you go for this?
Well, right now I don't have any commute at all,
other than from your bedroom across the way.
I wander from my bedroom into the kitchen and have coffee, then I just wander over to the church. And so it doesn't make sense to me right now, but if I was ever put in a position, to have to travel for work, if I was ever given a chancery position, God help us all, then it would very, very realistically be something I'd consider paying $25 a month for.
Yeah.
Even myself, as someone who really travels a lot, I mean, I probably put 30,000 miles on my vehicle a year. I really have never been able to get into audiobooks, and I think it's just because my attention span's not there. while I'm driving, my mind is in so many places that I can't just. I have to really be focused on something, and I've never been able to get really get into audiobooks. But this actually does seem like a good service, because I know some people who, I mean, you go in the front seat of their vehicle and there's literally 10 sets of audiobooks that are sitting there that they've been passing through CDs and whatnot.
Right.
And so I see how this could be very useful. And it may even tempt me to, try doing some audiobooks.
Yeah, of course. Make sure you try out audible.com, audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground before you do that. But now that raises a larger question. Mm-hmm. Does this put someone like Audible in danger?
This is a small enough niche crowd that's going to want to take advantage of this. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, either.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
you've got to really listen to a lot of audiobooks to take advantage of this.
Yeah, well, we hope not, because Audible provides a nice little kickback to us.
Yeah, I think if the price was a little more, something that was more along the lines of Spotify.
Right, that's $10 a month. This is almost the cost of an internet connection.
Or even Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something that's around $10 a month, I think people are more likely to just jump into and say, yeah, I'm going to do it and give it a try.
Yeah.
$25 a month, that's a real investment in something that you really got to be into it.
That's right, yeah. And then, of course, too, I guess the idea is that someone's thinking, well, if I'm going to buy one audiobook at $15 and $25, then I'll pay the same price for one audiobook for a monthly,
Right.
I don't know. It still seems the price point's a little high.
I guess the thing is, too, is that how many times are you going to listen to an audiobook over? I mean, I'll go to the library and get an audiobook and listen to it once. And it's not like a song where you're going to listen to it over and over and over again, which is where Spotify really can get you. But, as an audiobook, I listened to the thing once. I'm never going to probably listen to it again.
Right.
So there's no real impetus for me to want to keep something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it remains to be seen what kind of a niche it carves out. And then, of course, if they have more and more users, their price actually might go down a little bit. You never know. Yeah. Now, we move from audiobooks to the digital book. You'll remember from your reading that Apple purported to completely change the face of educational media by revamping its iBookstore to offer textbooks. And this is a really cool idea. But one of the things that most people noted, especially some lawyers and even our own Joshua LeBlanc, who you'll remember from your reading is really into law, canon and civil, they changed their end-user license agreement to clarify that Apple iBooks can only be sold through the Apple Store. So we were thinking, oh, well, with Catholic Underground, we can put together an iBook, but we'll sell it on our website. No. No.
Not even a little bit, Father.
And it was even worse than that, though, because whenever they announced iBooks, I wasn't even aware of the whole textbook thing. First thing I do in the morning when I get to my office is check all the latest tech blogs so I can know what's going on, what's been released.
Thought you were going to say is read a big textbook. Sorry.
No. Yes, I break out my geology book. No, I sit down and I read all the blogs, because inevitably, if there's something new that's coming out, people are going to call the local computer guy to find out, oh, is this something I should get? So I checked the blogs out, and before I even knew that Apple had done all of this, all I see is complaining everywhere on every blog about the terms of use of the new iBooks.
Right. So I asked you if you had seen it, and you're like, no, I haven't seen it, but I've been seeing it on the complaining.
Exactly. So I actually read one of the blog posts by someone who's actual attorney who tore this thing apart and said, this is the worst terms of use I've ever seen. I mean, basically the original, the way it was written is that if once you gave it to Apple, that you couldn't do anything with it from there on out. It was theirs no matter what format you wanted. And even if they rejected the darn thing, that's it. You couldn't sell it. All you could do was give the thing away. But it appears that maybe that wasn't Apple's intentions. I'm hoping that it wasn't Apple's intentions. And, or the other option is that people were so ticked that they caved into pressure and said, forget this isn't going to roll.
So basically, let me get this straight. This says that I can sell an iBook with my textbook or whatever that I create in the iBook author tool, and Apple is the only one who can sell that. And it's got to be done through the Apple Store. Yeah, but if I take that same textbook and I actually want to create a print version of it, I can still do that.
That's my
you can also
understanding.
create an EPUB or a .MOE or a .AMZ. You can do anything you want with your content, but that format can only be sold through Apple stores. In fact, you can give away the .iBook, but you can only sell it through Apple Store.
Which is standard operating procedure for all of their other media. So it's not that surprising.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
I think it was a largely misconstrued kind of thing, and and of course the previous EULA just didn't say what it needed to say. Now this is a big, gigantic file download. It's like 174 megs for a EULA update, which an end user license agreement usually doesn't take that much space, but. Or no, maybe it was really heavy in the change.
Maybe this one has pictures.
It reminds me of the days, Father Ron, you remember this, whenever you would get software with a new computer and the EULA was inside the wrapper. And so you would tell you that once you've opened this, you can't return it. But yet, if you read the EULA and you don't agree with it, you can't use the software.
Right.
It's that simple. You don't get money back. That's just the way it is.
Works out well for Bill Gates. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill Gates.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know that we have that ability, because I know some things have been cooking in the Catholic underground hive mind.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely interested. I've been talking for a while now about writing a couple of things and
to himself mainly, but
Yeah, a note to myself so I don't forget things.
That's right.
And maybe I'll publish it in my own book of my list of things that I've forgotten to do, and so I can go back and read it and remind.
And how much are you going to sell it to your wife for?
$300.
A list of things I've forgotten to do. Yeah,
like the Harry Potter rule.
That's right. You need yourself.
What you forgot.
That's right. So I'm not really sure how you segue from that into this, but moving into a few more current notions, current ideas that are happening within our world. Russell Shaw has been writing on the Ignatius Insight Scoop blog, which is the blog for Ignatius Press. It's really, really captivating. It's good. It doesn't just hawk their books, but it also is some of the world's foremost thinkers in English Catholic literature, and they really write some compelling stuff. And he makes the point that a new Catholic subculture is emerging, and the internet, more or less, is to blame. The new evangelization.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Justin. Do you have something?
No, go ahead.
I think anybody who's paying attention to a larger picture of the church than just your Sunday parish can see that there is definitely a series of subcultures appearing in the church. You have those people who are very devoted to pro-life exercises and ministries. You have those people who are really looking at this kind of explosion of the Church Music Association of America and the interest in Gregorian chant. You have huge numbers of people interested more and more in the saints and in real Orthodox Catholicism and really exploring the various devotions of the church. But Shaw is saying that the subculture could really go off its rails. It could end up as a rigid throwback to the days of the immigrant church, where the Poles set up their church and their version of Catholicism, and the Italians were not welcome. And the Swedes, I guess, or the Lutherans, so to speak, would set up their version of Catholicism in the north, and each of these different groups, each of these different ethnic groups, would make their own church that was a little walled-in community.
Yeah.
And Shaw's point is, if we want to prevent that from happening, the very best thing we can do is tie as many of these subcultures into the new evangelization as possible.
That's pretty awesome to think that that's really a component of the new evangelization, is to keep the church universal.
Yeah, it really is. And to connect the cultures.
Well, and this is such another great argument of why the church can't ignore things such as new media and social media and all of these different ways of communicating, because whenever you start to do that, as we see, if you're not making this part of the mainstream, then that's how those subcultures develop.
Yeah.
And when you start to take things like Facebook, Twitter, blogs, all of those things, and bring them in, and use those as tools for evangelization, whether it be your parish has a Facebook or your parish's members are actively connecting with one another on Facebook, then that brings the interpersonal relationships together, and you're not separate. You don't have these subcultures that developed.
Right. Now, of course, one of the pluses, I suppose, of that movement within our own United States, of that kind of subculture, is you got some very beautifully compacted experiences of culture, culture from Europe that worked its way in. Do you think that there's a danger there of kind of homogenizing with this, or not? Is it something that's actually that can actually be helpful by not allowing for some of that?
Well, this is we never got a chance to see what would really happen, because the 60s just kind of created chaos. Yeah. And for various and sundry reasons, those ethnic subcultures, like you said, Father Chris, just homogenized into nothing. Yeah. Homogenized into a giant, bland, whitewashed blah. But the subcultures we have now are less ethnic and more focused on various aspects of the faith. And I think that the logical dissolution of those groups is into a version of cafeteria Catholicism that's, just like the 60s, where we can reduce the faith to nothing but social justice. Yeah. I think it becomes possible to reduce the faith to nothing more than pro-life work, or to reduce the faith to nothing more than just viciously attacking anybody who has any dogmatic differences whatsoever. Right. Whereas new media and especially evangelization is focused around those fundamental principles of charisma, those fundamental principles of holiness of life, of the fundamentals of Catholic faith. And then the fifth step of that charisma that we talked about a couple episodes ago is that, okay, the fifth step is go out and do something about it. And so each of those groups falls very naturally into the fifth step, but they're united by those first four foundational steps, which, just to recap, is a sense of sin, an understanding of the divine mercy and the forgiveness of God, your mystagogical or fundamental instruction of faith, and then your more advanced instruction of the faith, which is really what fills in the gap between the basics and then what you feel like God is calling you to do. Yeah. And everybody can kind of get together with that picture of evangelization, whereas if you tried to unite them around, say, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, or the Baltimore Catechism, or the Catechism of the Council of Trent, or Fulton Sheen's Catechism, or the Knox Bible, whatever. If you try to unite them around one of those, you're not going to be able to get any traction.
You have to pull back farther.
Right.
A little bit wider view. And that's a real gift, I think, too, of what can be done with the work of the new evangelization. Is it doesn't simply it doesn't lend itself to this kind of ghettoification of one thing or another. It can. We've seen it, But the new evangelization can also allow for a more universal picture of the faith to be celebrated.
Hear, hear.
Which, of course, is the whole goal of what we do. The reason that we're here, the reason that we're online, the reason that Catholic Underground exists is evangelization, as you say. That's why we're here. If we were here just to watch ourselves talk, then as you can see, if you're watching our video feed, Father Ryan would be up a creek without a paddle because he's been frozen for the last 5 minutes.
Yay.
But the idea here, the end of it, the end of everything is evangelization, getting the word out, helping to, or at least trying to live up to the Great Commission, and we really are doing a disservice to the community if we are kind of clumping into a little group, and so that's again, if you're interested in more of that, there's a website called CatholicConExpo.com. You might think about taking a gander at, because that's part of why we're doing Catholicon as well. Okay, now we move into something that we probably could have led with, but we didn't. We didn't because it's already getting so much publicity on the Catholic blogosphere. But it's certainly worth a mention here on our show because this, and I dare say that the new evangelization has a lot to play in this picture. This is something that will play out for probably at least a year or two to come with election season, and that, of course, is the decision of our present administration, government administration, and the Health and Human Services Secretary, Kathleen Sebelius. It's interesting that as this mandate is being handed down, wherein employers will be forced, mandated, as you say, to provide for contraceptives and sterilization procedures as a part of normal health care, It's doing something for our bishops, isn't it? Who knew? I mean,
yeah, I think it's absolutely amazing. I mean, I think the last count was, 120 some odd bishops have signed who come on board saying they're going to oppose this and would happily go to jail for this.
As usual, it's I mean, if you just look at the Catholic history, it takes a demon for martyrs to begin to stand. You know, no martyr ever shed their blood because there was nothing to shed blood for. You know, a martyr always shed their blood. Take a look at St. Blaise, right? A martyr always sheds his or her blood because he or she is wishing to unite him or herself to the cross of Jesus Christ. And this stuff with Health and Human Services is most decidedly a demon of our culture of death.
Well, and on top of that, Nancy Pelosi gets on board today with this and says that she'll defend the Obama administration in, all of this. And so the biggest problem is you got two Catholics at the helm of this.
Right.
And you're wondering, why haven't they been excommunicated yet?
Right. And of course, the deeper question is, how many ways can you possibly get yourself excommunicated at the same time? I mean, that's the thing. Father Ryan, do you have anything to weigh in on this?
Well, I certainly want to encourage people to listen to this week's Life is Still Worth Living, which is entirely devoted to this question. And I think that the real crux of the whole thing does boil down to a handful of reminders. First, Obamacare itself is the real fundamental problem. It's not just a question of how loosely the religious exemption is being interpreted. This is still going to force ordinary Catholics in the real world to provide immoral care, free contraceptive for their employees, and there's not going to be a realistic way for them to get out of it as long as this horrific law is in place. So we do have to remember the larger problem is Obamacare, and a lot of the bishops who are now standing up and screaming, are kind of having to eat their words because they said, "Oh, we trust the president," and they kind of deserve what they're getting to some degree. The second part of the equation, though, is that the U.S. Supreme Court just absolutely smashed a religious liberties question almost identical to this just a few days ago, talking about whether a church could operate the way it wanted to. And it's a lot of the same lead principles, and it lost in the Supreme Court 9-0. So that most of the bishops are actually quite confident that even if it does stand and it's not revoked by the administration, the U.S. Supreme Court will kill it. But what it embodies is the question of the right of a religious person or religious group to govern themselves.
Yeah.
And what this basically embodies is belief of many liberals in the United States that no, the religion of political correctness is the true religion of our nation, and that anybody can believe whatever they want as long as it's exactly identical in every way, shape, or form to the religion of political correctness.
Yeah.
And so I think we at some point have to stop pretending that we can just be light and airy about this.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the question of contraception. It has its own merits and discussion. But what we have to do is think more broadly and say we've allowed this to go too far. And as Catholics, time that we're no longer allowed to sit on the sidelines and just wait for things to happen. It's no longer acceptable for a Catholic to simply take it on the chin. It is now at the edge of obligatory for every Catholic in this nation to either say, I am a Catholic and I stand against this, or I'm not a Catholic and I'm lying to myself and others, and just get out and go to the Protestant church. We don't want you if you don't want us.
Yeah.
So there.
Well, that's a perfect tease for Life is Still Worth Living, which you can get at CatholicUnderground.com. It's something else. I mean, you can see the wagon circling here. Because Catholics for so long have really, in a sense, we have allowed ourselves to get into the cafeteria Catholicism mode. We have allowed ourselves to get to that point, and so it's no surprise to me that now is the time that we're being asked to stand up, and we're actually being kind of forced into it. So kudos to the bishops who are doing so. Kudos to them indeed. We've lost Father Ryan's video feed if you're watching us in the chat window. So I'm going to throw to Josh for just a second. Josh, do you have a final word while I try and sort this out?
Well, in all of this, I think the biggest thing that I think our bishops are starting to recognize is that in our country, we're really at a time of a crossroads. And slowly and slowly and slowly, Catholics have recognized the fact that we are the last
acceptable prejudice.
Well, that's it. Acceptable prejudice. It's you can't make comments about Jewish people. You can't make any comments about Muslims, anything, Buddhist, any of those religious groups are forbidden to make any comments about. But yet Catholics can be picked on. Now we're having our civil liberties questioned, our religious rights, and not just our religious rights, but as Archbishop Dolan said, we're being asked, how can we violate our consciences?
Right, and you have a year to do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's something else. And it remains to be seen. Now, of course, this is one of those things where we as Catholics, not only are we called to stand up, some of us perhaps to go to prison, perhaps all of us within the church to receive, to have to start paying tax. This is one of those things that certainly will involve some activity, but is also going to involve our prayer, our asking God for mercy, and that's the thing too. Is we as a church, have we done enough to be publicly penitent for the sins that we as a church have committed because we have just kind of laid down?
Well, I think so long in our country that not just, I don't think the bishops have intentionally sat back and said nothing. I just think they've never been challenged. They've never had, been at the front like this where their actual people have been challenged to the point that they've needed to stand up and say, I will publicly go to prison for this. And ultimately, I think this is a great test because, the people don't realize that, for example, the cardinals of the church, they wear red because they have to be willing to shed their blood for Christ and his church. And the same thing is true for our bishops. We know that the bishops were the first martyrs, the apostles, the first martyrs, and were willing to die even for Christ. And so how heartening for a Catholic to see their shepherd stand up and say, because I believe in the truth, that I'm willing to go to jail, I'm willing to do whatever for the sake of the gospel.
That's right. The reason that we had martyrs in the early church were because the apostles led them to believe in Jesus Christ in a radical way. And so I'm thankful for our apostles. Hopefully, if the time comes, I would be, as a priest, willing to stand up and say the same thing, and pray for Father Ryan and for myself, especially because these are the homilies that we will have to give. And that's
exactly
not an easy thing. Now we move from that to the Occupy protests and how they're kind of happening on a local scale for the force of good and not just slothfulness.
This is an article I found actually on a site that Josh is instrumental in creating, a Catholic Lane. This is basically a lot of parents taking an eye to the Occupy protest and standing up and saying, we're going to occupy the classroom because we're sick and tired of ridiculous nonsense being taught to our children. Where mandatory sex ed is happening in 2nd and 3rd grade around this country, parents are basically just standing in the back of the classrooms and daring teachers to kick them out. Every time the teacher says something ridiculous or stupid, a parent just stands up and goes, it's not true. Of course, it's not a gigantic, widespread movement, but I absolutely love this article. It brings me great joy to see any parent standing up and saying, I'm just not going to take it anymore. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
And now this is another example, too, of what we as Catholics are being called to do. I mean, can you imagine a Catholic parent sitting in a public classroom? It's a public school, right? You can sit in a public school classroom and then having a teacher teach something usually non-deferential to the church, and to be able to stand up and say that is not true. And as a citizen of the United States, I have the right to speak my mind. This kind of turning the whole idea of suppressed freedom of speech that we live in now on its end. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's an awesome thing.
New 1984 commercial from Apple.
That's right. Well, and that's it. Sometimes it's time just to get angry and to say I've had it.
Yeah.
all of these little things are just kind of beginning to boil over within our political structures, etc. It kind of makes you, again, this is the stuff that draws us to prayer all the more, to ask Our Lady of Fatima for intercession and to ask God for mercy. Because these are all symptoms, are they not? Father Ron, would you say these are symptoms of things to come?
I would say they're symptoms of a much deeper root problem.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're necessarily signs of what is to come.
Yeah.
But they definitely, these aren't really the real problems. The real problem is a deeper, more profound hatred of history, hatred of where we come from, fear, absolute terror at looking inside, and a horrific belief that man really can be the measure of all things. This is the logical consequence of quote unquote enlightenment.
Yeah.
There's an old book that says thoughts have consequences, and we're seeing those consequences right now.
And it's interesting as you look at the history of the world over the past 50, even 60 years, and this was what communism sought to eradicate by placing the premier of the Communist Party in the place of God. The idea was to create a new series of absolutes, and ultimately created nothing but oppression and ultimately death for those who did not fall into line. And I see some of the same roots, not necessarily that are communist, but I see some of the same roots where each person sets himself up as the premier of his own party. Mm-hmm. And that's got to be the cause for a deep sadness within the soul, and no wonder we're beginning to kind of tear at our own flesh. To try and to rid ourselves of this disease that we created, that is our own concupiscence that's just kind of running rampant. Anyway, we move from that to Bishop Fabian Bruskowitz, who was much hated and much loved. He's a bishop who from the very beginning has been standing up, and he's now getting ready to retire. Is that right?
Yeah.
Bishop, do you know any signs or retires?
He's actually due soon. I think within the next year, or maybe already reached 75. But I know he was 74. In fact, I'm gonna look it up on Catholic Hierarchy while you speak.
Okay,
right. Joshua is one of these people that follows this sort of thing.
Yeah, Bishop Bruskowitz is one of those people who has been swept under the mat again and again and again. Every time someone says, well, if you want to see how it's done right, go look at that guy. Bruskowitz was one of the first back in the 1990s to condemn call to action and Planned Parenthood. He excommunicated members of the Society of St. Pius X, members of Planned Parenthood, members of Call to Action.
Masons.
He's also...
and the Masons.
And the Masons. And people were saying, oh, well, he's going to be utterly unsuccessful. People are going to hate him. He's going to have no vocations. But you're talking about Lincoln, Nebraska, which is, in terms of Catholicism, nowhere. I mean, nowhere. You go to nowhere, you turn left, you pass Alexandria a mile down, and then Lincoln's past that. But right now, he has got 38 seminarians.
Unheard of.
He's got a diocese of 100,000 Catholics. Is that, what, half the size of Baton Rouge?
That's right.
38 seminarians. Could you imagine, Father Chris, if you were running 80 seminarians for your diocese?
I would breathe easy. Because I know that
he's one of the only bishops in the country that's opened a seminary.
Yeah.
And he is wildly successful, and all the time he has absolutely refused the Virtus nonsense. He's refused any safe environment nonsense. He has absolutely rejected that entire hermeneutic and that way of thinking. And even though he is maligned left, right, and center by huge numbers of bishops and has been for 30 years, he has become arguably the single most successful bishop in the United States hierarchy. Yeah. He's got a great book called Shepherd Speaks, and I love this guy because he has stood by his principles and by the faith, and the faith has borne fruit.
Is it on the Kindle by chance?
I believe it is. Let me check.
Yeah, because
I'm just checking on the other stuff.
Yeah, he's 60. He's 76 and a half.
Oh, he's well past.
He's past retirement age.
Not quite on the Kindle yet, according to
Shepherd Speaks.
Yeah. Oh well,
it's a great book.
It's a spectacular book.
How awesome! Well, I might have to put that on my list of things. My goodness. Well, there's always plenty to put on our list. We actually have a list of things that that we do every week, and that's what we call our picks of the week, and we want to share them with you now. And for our first pick of the week, we go directly to Joshua, which that's actually that's not Joshua, that's Father Ryan. If you're watching us in the video chat, I'm just having one of those days. Joshua, what's your pick of the week?
Well, my pick of the week is a little device that I just picked up a few days ago. In fact, I told you about this, Father Chris, whenever I ordered it.
Yeah, I can see you drooling over it.
It's a little device that's called FreeTalk. It's a home adapter for Skype. And until now, I just found out about it, actually. I looked at them in the past, and basically there are adapters that you could hook up to your computer that would connect to your phone and let you use your computer to dial out Skype. But I really wanted something that didn't require a computer, that I could just plug into a wall outlet, hook up an Ethernet jack to, and then telephone out, and it automatically knew to use my Skype account and everything. And lo and behold, this adapter, I found it on Amazon, I believe, for around $40. And it does just that. You plug it into your network, and you browse to its IP address. In fact, if you're using a Windows computer, it automatically appears in your network, so you can see it and connect to it and configure it, and give it your Skype credentials and whatnot. And then once you do that, you never have to touch it again. Plug it into a phone electrical outlet, connect one into your router or network switch, and then the other into your phone, or in my case, my office phone system, and then it gives you the ability to call out using your Skype number. And so you just set up a whole bunch of speed dials in the system if you want to be able to call out to certain people's Skype names. And then it's as simple as picking up your phone and hitting star and then a number, and then automatically recognizes the speed dial. Or if you have Skype out, you can call regular phones. And if you have Skype in, it gives you a phone number that you can actually receive calls on your Skype number on any phone. And so for me, I was able to integrate it into my office's phone system. So because I have Skype out, I have unlimited United States and Canada calling. I can call out to anywhere, and it doesn't cost me anything. And I can do it right here from my office. And so that's really cool, because if I want a conference with somebody who's on Skype, then I have the ability to do that and interface it with somebody who might be on a regular phone. So that's a really cool feature for me. And again, that thing is called FreeTalk.
I like it. Now, Joshua, is this like a monthly charge? Is that how that works?
No, absolutely. It's no one-time fee.
Really? So you pay for the thing, and then it's yours, and then if you have Skype, the only thing you're paying for is your Skype in or Skype out.
That's it. Your Skype in or Skype out. And for me, one of the things that was really nice is Skype lets you choose whatever number you want to for your caller ID.
Oh, nice.
So I was able to
really
actually program it to use my business phone number. So when I call out on that number, it appears like I'm calling from my business and not a Skype number.
Oh, my. Well, yeah, I might have to look into that. I think that's a really cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my pick of the week is actually based upon my love for design. You all know that I do love the design. And one of the things that I found myself buying was that the new daily app for iPad, which, of course, is the iPad-only news magazine from Rupert Murdoch. And, the news reporting is okay. Some of it can lean this or that way and politically, but one of the things that I just couldn't get past was how beautiful everything is, because, again, it was made specifically for the iPad, and so you can do animations and interactive stuff. Well, the design team over at The Daily actually has a blog. I discovered it this past week, and some of the infographics and stuff that they do that are just so awesome, they have them all on their blog. And so you can go through them, and I just drink in these cool designs. Some of them are really cool illustrations, and these are the things that animate in the magazine, and so they have them so you can see them. I sat for hours here, and I still haven't gone through the whole blog. So if you want some good eye candy here, the design blog from The Daily is the way to go. It's show.thedaily-design.com. We'll put it in the show notes for you so that you can see what that's all about. Now, Father Ryan, I know you've got a pick of the week, so we wouldn't want to deprive you of it.
Well, thank you. I've got a pick of the week that I'm super excited about, and Father Chris, I know you're going to love it. It's called canvaspop.com. Canvaspop.com. This website will take an Instagram photo or really any photo you want, and it prints it to a canvas. So not a poster, but that kind of textured look.
Yeah.
And then they will do this for something as small as an 8x10 that you just roll up and then they'll send it to you, or they'll go to something as big as 24x72.
Wow.
With an 1.5 inch thick or 2.5 inch thick express wood frame. And you're going to pay for the big stuff, but any middle range products, if you try to do this yourself, you'd pay a fortune, and it's such a pain in the butt. You have to go and hire somebody. It costs a lot of money.
An 8x10 is $55.
Well, an 8x10 just rolled in the paper is
30. Yeah.
But if you want to have it, go ahead and have it mounted. You want it to be 3/4 deep with it bleeding over the edges. It's $50. If you want to go with something gigantic like 3 feet by 5 feet, with a giant wood frame, that's going to be almost $420. But wow, this is such a cool website. And you can do something as simple as throw it in Instagram, or you can take a high-def photo. You can add filters and effects, which I know just makes Father Chris cringe.
Yeah.
But it is a spectacular website that I'm actually planning on doing a lot of the decorating for my new house with this, being able to take really good photos of the of my churches and various things like that, arty photos. And
I've got ideas already.
It's spectacular. So cool. Or you can choose your own canvas up to 76 inches by 8 inches, which is a gigantic piece of fabric. But it's a cool site, canvaspop.com.
I like it. Father, do you want to go ahead and do our Audible commercial?
Well, I'd love to, Father. We'd like to thank Audible.com for their sponsorship of Catholic Underground. Audible is the world's leading supplier of audiobooks and spoken word digital audio. If you surf to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground, you're 2 weeks free to try that service out. Gold Plan is going to offer one audiobook every month, and it's going to give you access to tons of free and discounted material, books, magazines, even sermons, daily newspapers like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. You can turn your commute, your time at the gym, or your yard work into something meaningful. And so, again, surf over to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground and help us out by letting us help you.
And yes, it does help us out. Joshua, you're continually getting little checks in the mail of people trying out audibletrial.com.
Absolutely, and we're thankful. You pay the monthly hosting bill for Libsyn, so...
Yeah, people think that we do this out of the kindness of our hearts, and we do. I mean, we do. But we don't all have the paychecks to go with the size of our hearts. And so we thank you for any help that you provide with audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground, or certainly those of you who are benefactors who are donating monthly. If you haven't donated monthly in a while, or maybe your credit card has expired and you got a new credit card in the mail, go back to CatholicUnderground.com and click the donate button if what we're doing is worthwhile for you. There's something that's coming up that I'm really excited about that we want to share with you. We were going to share it with you Wednesday night, but we had to do our makeup podcast. And so what we thought we would do is take you on a little tour through the Cthulhu Con Expo website, because it's coming up. And so, Father Ryan, would you be interested in leading this tour?
Well, considering I can't actually see you in real time, Father, that would probably be a bad idea.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to think of a way to do this. I thought we were a little bit better put together than we are, apparently. But why don't you go to CthulhuConExpo.com?
Oh, there's a good point.
And that way we can, because it's on the internet.
The interwebs?
For those of you who are listening to us or watching us, I'm actually just going to reintroduce this because it's going to be its own segment. So we're going to try this again. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Do you have your special pants on, Father?
But you didn't tell me you were talking to me, Father. So
all right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of a live podcast. You're supposed to be able to do these things on the fly. But, some people need a little more preparation. Father Ryan uses what we call Preparation Humphreys.
Thank you for that.
That's because preparations A through G failed.
That's right.
So for preparation A, you wouldn't have survived life.
That's true enough. So one of the things we want to do is take you on a little trip through the CatholicConExpo.com site, because as you know, Catholicon Expo is coming up in New Orleans. And so, Father Ryan, when we're looking at the website, we see actually a fairly well-designed site, don't we?
Yes, it was designed by master designer Father Christopher Joseph Decker. I don't know if you've ever heard of him or not, but he's a fantastic designer. The site is based around the icon, a very ancient icon of Christ Pantocrator, if you're Greek, Pantocrator. And
if really you're not, you're just lost.
Yeah, you're busted. We really want to focus the site on our theme, which this year is going to be Christ Perfect Communicator. So you're going to go to your web browser of choice, which is either Chrome or Safari, and it's really nothing else. And you're going to type in CatholiconExpo.com, and that's going to take you to our spectacular website, where you're going to be introduced to our theme and reminded that our conference takes place September 14th through 16th in New Orleans, Louisiana.
And we're excited about that.
World-class tourist destination. We didn't have space on the website to put it quite yet, but New Orleans is a wonderful city.
Yeah.
Father Chris and I both went to school there for 4 years. You're going to be within walking distance of some of the finest art, some of the most spectacular street performers, wonderful music. Tipitina's is right down the road, the best jazz house in the world. Mm-hmm. You're going to be within walking distance of some of the greatest. You can walk to the food. You'll never walk away from it. But it's really spectacular. And so as we take you through our website, we're going to start in the vital info section because we needed a dramatic title. And we decided to ask, why would you come to Catholicon? And so I'm not going to read it to you, but we want you to look and realize the Catholic Underground is an organization, and Catholicon is an event that is dedicated really and deep and truly to the digital continent and the Pope's notion of the need to evangelize the digital continent. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the width and breadth of the church and the technology that goes into it. But then we have to remind ourselves everything we're doing is oriented and focused upon Christ, the Pantocrator. And if you notice that the eyes look different, good.
Yes.
We're going to move. Yes.
Yes.
Then we're going to move to the next page of vital info, which is the general schedule of events. Now, we don't want to let too much out right now. We want to give you that sense of, ooh, and interesting, and maybe there's more to be told. And in fact, there is a lot more. We can tell you that Friday evening we're going to have a social hour with some cocktails if you'd like to enjoy those. We're going to have solemn vespers in the presence of the Most Blessed Sacrament. And we're going to have the opportunity to engage in something called bar camps, which is going to give people who have the right knowledge and the right ideas a chance to hang out. More about that down the road. Mm-hmm. Throughout the entire weekend, we're going to have an expo area open, which is going to be available to let you peruse what some other Catholic organizations are doing. We're also going to make our 2 coffee bars available. Father Chris, what are the names of the coffee bar?
Baraba and Barjona.
Few people at the Second Vatican Council, they had 2 coffee bars where most of the actual discussion took place. Bar Jonah and Bar Rabbas. Bar in Hebrew means son of, and so there's some very funny, seminary humor, which most ordinary humans
usually doesn't translate, right?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Saturday, we begin with the Mass, and then we'll move into our Clare camps, a little bit more about that in just a second. Then we'll have the CU Think Tank, a VIP supper, and a very special evening program that Father Chris and Josh and I are really pumped about.
Yeah, we're totally pumped about it.
It's great, huh? Josh, you have something to say about the evening event without giving away what it is?
No, I'm really excited about the evening event. Last year, it was more amazing than I could have expected. In fact, I think it was the most special of the entire conference was the sit-down meal and the visiting, and people really, really enjoyed it. I had multiple people come up to me and say how much they really thought the atmosphere was great. Of course, being in New Orleans now, with the city that's famous for its food, I think it's just going to be even more magnificent.
Yeah. And then if that was great, the event after the VIP supper is going to be even cooler. So
it is going to be a
yeah. And then Sunday.
After Saturday, we have our great joy. Then Sunday, we're going to wake up and we're going to have our Sunday Mass. We're going to conclude with some more bar camps and some more, we think is some really good programming. A lot of conferences where we drop the ball on Sunday. And I feel like last year we probably did that a little bit too. But we're really going to pick up the slack this year. And we've got a great Sunday plan that really makes it worth sticking around. And then we're going to conclude with some devotions to the Most Blessed Sacrament, because we always want to begin in with the Lord. Yeah. And then Claire Camp, which is the real meat and potatoes. Our event, we have 2 tracks last year on methods and on content. This year we have 3 tracks. Track 1 is going to be again on methods, which is, how do you do all that crazy tech stuff? Track 2 is going to be on the content, which, hey, what do you say once all that tech stuff is working? And then track 3 is something that Father Z really pushed us toward last year, which was a notion of a theology of communication. Yep. Now, this is obviously a little heavier, and it's an entirely new kind of thing. Nobody's really tried to do it, and so we're really excited about bringing some academics together and doing something what we think is very unique in this kind of new media, because you do need to know the theology. The theology is not irrelevant. Right. And so those are the Claire Camp tracks: methods, content, theology. And, of course, you're going to go over to the website. You're going to read more about those, and we will be kind of sneaking out little hints and teasers if you subscribe to the newsletter, which you can also do at our website.
That's awesome, yeah.
Now, we're going to let you know that the costs of Cthulhu Con, let me do the Steve Jobs. How much would you expect to pay for an event like
$6,000?
Your firstborn child? How about an entire month-long trip to Europe? How much would you expect to pay for this? Well, we do Cthulhu Con as inexpensively as we can. We want to make sure that as many people as possible who want to be there can be there. So our general admission is $50. Now, that is nothing. Any other conference, anything like this, that number would be 8-10 times that amount. And so the general admission fee is very low. We want you to sign up before the Feast of the Assumption of Our Lady, precisely because we want you to do that before she goes into heaven, body, and soul. After that, it's more expensive. But that's largely because it makes it more complicated for us if you sign up later rather than earlier. Hotel rooms at the 4-star New Orleans Intercontinental, which is a spectacular hotel, are about $110 a night. There are some fees and stuff like that, and you have to work that out with the hotel. But realize you can do our conference. Realistically, if 2 and 3 of you come at the time, you can do our conference for $250 per person. Yeah, that's amazing. That's a whole weekend.
Not a day, not $250 a day.
Right,
$250 weekend.
So just realize that's astounding. We ourselves are kind of surprised we got the number that low. Now, in order to get the number that low, you need to share a hotel room with somebody, do some other stuff like that. But it's astounding, and so we're really pumped. We want you to go over and check out the costs and fees, and we certainly want you to email us with suggestions and ideas you may have about anything under that vital info. Yep. Now, one of the things that I'm excited about, and Father Chris was nervous about it at the beginning, are behind-the-scenes blog. I'm a big fan of letting people see behind the curtain and realize that there's just a tiny little man there who's talking into a microphone, or in my case, a not-so-tiny little man into a microphone. But this blog is going to be where we chronicle all the people who organize in the conference, what we do and how it works, and what we have to organize, and what kind of struggles we had to do to get this to work, and when that sponsor comes on board. And so we want you to subscribe to that feed, and we want you to check back to the website to see how things are going behind the scenes. Now, in the course of the next couple of months, as we roll out more features, we're going to be including an interaction section where you can kind of get involved, where you can lay prayer intentions on, and we will be praying for them and things like that. We consciously launched a part of the website now, and we're going to consciously launch a part of it later for a series of reasons that'll probably be explained in behind-the-scenes posts. But for now, that is our website, CthulhuConExpo.com, CatholicONExpo.com. It takes place September 14th through 16th, Feast of the Triumph of the Holy Cross. It is in New Orleans, Louisiana, the Big Easy. Great food, great people, great art, great Catholic faith, and we want to see you there at the Cthulhu Con Expo 2012.
That's exactly right, and we know we'll be there, so we hope that you will too. Now, registration, Joshua, that's coming soon, right?
Correct. It's coming very soon.
That's right. We want to kind of whet the appetite before we do.
Yeah, we don't want to let you register too early, but, keep checking the site out.
That's right.
We'll let you know when we open it.
Yeah, the best way to find out when registration opens is to sign up for our newsletter. That's coming up. And so that's the show. So, again, we want to thank all of you for everything that you do, especially all of you who pray for us. Know that we pray for you. If you want, the way to get in touch with us is the best way to do it on our website at CatholicUnderground.com. That's the way we do it. And if you want to find our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, and everything, it's all there. It's all there. So check it out, CatholicUnderground.com. Joining us, because he is the perfunctory Acadian at CyberCatholics.com. He's at Jared LeBlanc on Twitter. Thank you, Josh, for joining us.
Thank you.
Also, Father Ryan, his church is online at CampdyCatholicChurch.com, and all of his personal posts, and we mean the really good stuff, is on Twitter. He's at FR Humphreys. Thanks, Father Ryan.
It's been my pleasure.
And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. I can be found on the Twitter as well. Digital Catholic is my handle, and I'm very proud for you to know that. Thanks for joining us and hanging out with us here on this Digital Con. We're Catholic Underground, and we are Faith Gone Digital. We'll see you next time.